Supposedly in the 1900s, the party switched, right? But what did not change is their love for immigration and how they have always prioritized that over the black community.
The Commission finds no national interest in continuing to import lesser skilled and unskilled workers.
Hello, I'm Andre Barnes. If you're hungry for more of the truth, then join us for the PB&J Hour. Peyton Jackson and I will discuss the news of the day, policy, and issues that affect your community. Hello, and we're back, and we're back, and we're back again. It is that time again. My name is Andre Barnes, and this is the Policy Barnes and Jackson Show, affectionately known as the PB&J Hour. And what I would like to do today is have a quick segment with our viewers to discuss all the enforcement that has happened in the U.S. and abroad today. It has been fast, it has been furious, and I'd just like to go over some of these things with you. We also had a tragedy, and I'd like to discuss why we need the enforcement. We'll talk about who's responsible, what's responsible, and we'll also talk about the policies that are contributing to those types of tragedies. So before we get started, hold on to your seats because we're going to be moving fast.
With breaking news.
This, in fact, was the largest single-site enforcement operation in the history of Homeland Security investigations.
Breaking right now at noon, 475 people detained in a large-scale raid by Homeland Security, ICE, and other agencies at a construction site in South Georgia. I'm Brooks Baptiste.
Good afternoon. I'm Cyria Sandlin. This happened Thursday at the Hyundai mega site in Ellabelle, which is in Bryan County. Federal officials calling it the largest single-site operation in the history of Homeland Security operations. The site located about 30 miles outside of Savannah. The raid happened at Hyundai's battery construction site on the South Korean company's mega site. Homeland Security officials says the operation involved multiple federal agencies, including U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the Border Patrol, and the FBI. Homeland Security says this raid stemmed from an ongoing months-long criminal investigation. Hundreds of workers detained. The majority of them, according to Homeland Security, are Korean nationals.
Some that illegally crossed the border into the United States, some that came in through visa waiver and were prohibited from working, some that had visas and overstayed their visas.
No charges were immediately announced. Homeland Security says those 475 detainees were sent to the ICE processing center in Folkestone.
So yeah, we have an issue. All right. Did you listen to the gentleman that was talking about the different ways that people were violating the law? They were overstaying their visas. They were coming illegally. It just seems like Hyundai decided that they were going to do whatever they could not to hire Americans. That is almost 500 jobs that were taken from this community because the company decided they didn't want to hire Americans. What we also saw was that the majority were South Korean nationals. So I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but there's something called immigrant networking. And what essentially happens is once a group of illegal or legal immigrants come in and they're working at a particular place, in some situations, they will only hire their own people. They won't hire Americans. They won't hire anyone outside of their communities. And this is exactly what was happening here. So sometimes these organizations, these businesses will utilize a third-party recruiter. They'll tell them who they're looking for, and the recruiter will bring in the people. or they'll have people at the plant that know people that will be willing to work. And what happens when they do that? Well, they can pay a lower wage. The company makes a lot more money, and they protect their bottom line, which is to make as much money as possible and to cut costs. So this creates a very huge disadvantage to American workers. And I'm glad that the Trump administration is seriously cracking down on these businesses. Now, I hope that what we're seeing now with the people, the 475 people that have been detained, I hope it doesn't end there. I hope that Hyundai has to go to court now and deal with the consequences of bringing in illegals to our businesses and shutting out Americans. Because if it just ends with detaining and deporting, then companies are going to continue to do this. So I hope that the punishment is strict and it sends a message to other companies. All right, we're going to move on to the next type of enforcement. I know a lot of you have heard that Trump is going to bring the National Guard. And there's been all this controversy. Is it legal for him to do? Can he do it? He's violating this law. Why doesn't he just invest more into the ATF or other programs in Chicago? We asked for $800 million. Well, in anticipation of ICE operations and additional enforcement that the Trump administration will be doing in Chicago, we're seeing that they're starting to fortify some of the federal government buildings. Watch here.
This is at the federal building in Chicago. They're starting to put up the fences. Pretty soon we know what's going to happen. ICE and National Guard going to step in. So it's crazy this happening. I've never seen this before.
Guys, I'm on the ground at the Federal Plaza where you can see workers setting up this barricade here ahead of these demonstrations that are expected in front of the Federal Plaza here in Chicago. Guys, I'm gonna keep you updated as this unfolds.
Well, as you can see, the fortifications are happening. The ICE raids will continue. The enforcement will continue. But as we know, the protesters are going to push back. And in anticipation of that, they're starting to fortify. So on to our next story. We got an exclusive. And no one else has this on the ground reporting, because I actually had a chance to go on the Let the Truth Be Told with Pastor David Lowry, and I was a guest on his show, and I'm a usual guest on it. I'm a usual on his show. So we got a chance to interview Ben Berquam from Real America Voices, and he gave us on the ground updates about ICE operations and the history of Chicago and why these operations are happening. So we got an exclusive with Ben, and I want to share with you some of his insights about what's happened from the past and what's happening with the raids now.
Sorry for the delay.
No problem, folks. This is Ben Berquam of Real America Voices. He's going to, Ben, talk a little bit about why you're here and what you've seen since you've been here regarding the illegals and ICE and all of that.
Well, we had a former president under Joe Biden who allowed the largest invasion in American history. And now we have President Trump, who, with Tom Homan and Kristi Noem, who are undoing that. But unfortunately, you have places like this, Chicago, in particular, Cook County. You got the jail behind me right here, where you have mayors and governors who are protecting criminal illegals, and sadly, even people like the sheriffs who are protecting illegals over American citizens. So everybody, all the neighborhoods are in danger. And instead of, this is one of those irritating things. Everybody who lives in the inner city knows how dangerous the inner city is, how much the need for the restoration of the rule of law is there. But on top of that, when you add a whole other generation of people from foreign countries who have no allegiance to this country, and you throw them into communities that are already struggling, it's a recipe for disaster. And that's exactly what you have here. I've been riding with ICE and Border Patrol. I had 4 years where I couldn't ride with ICE. We were blacked out from under Biden. They basically turned them into the cartel Uber. So we did most of our work with sheriffs and police officers. And now under President Trump and Tom Homan, I'm able to ride with ICE and Border Patrol. And it's just, it's a different country now with them in charge.
Ben, now that all the things that you've seen, because you've seen this way back when you was in the jungles, when they was coming over here and everything. Now that you've seen this with what ICE is doing, talk a little bit about the fact that how bad Chicago really is, because we have people shot, over 8 people murdered over the holiday. Talk about a little bit some of the things that you have seen since you've been working with ICE.
Well, it's like you said, Chicago is a dangerous city already. And when you add 30 years of liberals and now Soros-backed DAs who don't prosecute, you've got no cash bail, you've got a lawless society. Well, then you add millions of illegals. And the epicenter for the illegal invasion, it was New York and Chicago. That's where the majority of illegals went. And basically, they got to pick wherever they wanted to go. They came in illegally, they claimed fake asylum, and then they were able to pick wherever they wanted to go. Many of them chose Chicago. And important because you already have that activist community, the foundation here, the whole La Raza movement, the idea of a sanctuary city, sanctuary state, all of that has been breeding here. It's a cancer that's been growing here in Chicago for 40 plus years. Actually, Lincoln United Methodist Church is one of the churches where the idea of harboring illegals came from, and that's right here in the epicenter of Chicago. So you've got a city that's already struggling with crime, that's struggling with a lack of policing, that doesn't trust the police in some cases, or the police, because of former corruption, or in some cases don't rightfully prosecute criminals that should be off the streets. So those guys are going back out into the streets and re-victimizing. And then on top of that, like we just talked about, you add in millions of illegal aliens who have no allegiance to this country, who come from a culture of criminality. Many of them, a lot of them, you look at Guatemala as an example, it's got a 95% murder non-conviction rate. So 95% of the murders go unsolved in Guatemala. When you come from a society like that and you get put into this community where you've already got crime as high as it is, it's just a natural tendency to continue that criminal activity. And that's what you did. You basically, what Joe Biden and Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson did was just pour gas on a fire. And now you've got President Trump coming in and Tom Homan and the National Guard talking about coming in here. And instead of saying, yes, we need it, it's time to restore the community that we love. It's a great city, once was a great city. Instead of saying that, they're saying, no, you guys are the problem. Now they're saying that President Trump and National Guard are threatening their communities. Well, what communities are you talking about? The only thing that they're threatening are criminals. And if that's your community, well, then you got a problem.
Dre, you got any questions?
Yes, I do. So as you've been out there with ICE in LA, one of the tactics that they use to deter ICE is to have a lot of protesters, a lot of people show up and basically deter their operations. Have you been seeing that out on the beat while you've been out with ICE?
A little bit. I mean, I saw it in LA. I was there for some of the riots in LA. Most of the time, let me go from the beginning. So when President Trump won, Tom Homan got into office, they invited us out to come join them. Almost immediately, he started having leaks from both the media as well as internal people in the agencies that are, what we call the deep state. They were leaking out the information of where ICE was going to be. And when that happens, then you would have a bunch of protesters show up and try to shut them down or attack them. So the media, the ride-alongs, the embeds ended for a while because of that. They've started back up and they're very selective on who they're inviting out. We've been invited back out with them, but they're trying to keep where they're going and when they're going there secret until, right until they get there, in part because these same people, these same activists, these same communities, the so-called sanctuary state movement, and the same NGOs that were getting paid off by our former administration to invite the invasion in, Catholic Charities, Lutheran Social Services, Jewish Family Services, all of these
Divine
NGOs. They are all working to protect illegal aliens. So they're providing training courses on what you have to say, what you don't have to say. The fact that if it's an administrative warrant, you don't have to open your doors. So they're training all these people, and they're also in part they're also part of the activists and the protests against them. So you are seeing some protests, like here in Chicago. They're just down at the ICE facility. So most of the protests are at the facilities themselves. But when the word spreads that ICE is in town or ICE is in the community, you do have some community members come out. I've seen just as many community members come out and say, thank you guys for being here, as I've seen come out and say, anything bad or disparaging about them.
Mr. Binky, you got a question?
Yeah, I've got to get out of here. I got to go here in a minute. I got to meet a guy at the shop, but I just want Ben to understand this sanctuary city stuff, this welcoming city stuff and all that, it is it's unconstitutional.
Absolutely.
It does not exist. And just as they did with the Roe versus Wade, challenged it back in court. That's what this administration needs to do, because no state can change, alter, or create immigration laws, and that includes sanctuary cities, and it also includes them, as Rauner did in 2017, that created the Trust Act to tell the police not to enforce laws.
Yeah.
So Trump needs to get this. As far as I'm concerned, Ben, Trump needs to arrest Pigster, Brandon Johnson, for violating their oath, for obstructing of justice, and inciting violence.
I 100% agree.
And they needs to get it into court and argue just the case that these sanctuary cities, which Harold Washington made on an executive order. This is this is not even a law. How have they done this since 1985 in any other city and state that's done this and not been challenged in court? This is why this country is the way it is. We've got to hold people accountable for powers they do or don't get. And this is one power that belongs to the federal government, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4. It needs to go into court, and as much influence as you probably got with Mr. Trump, you need to push him to get this into court and get this fixed once and for all.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Steve, 100%. My last point was going to be, that's the biggest problem we have right now is, when they opened the floodgates to the illegal invasion, they allowed millions in. It's very easy. It's like flowing water. The water goes to the path of least resistance. Very easy to let it in, much harder to get it out. Now it's rotting, it's festering, it's all over our country. Every single illegal has to be, outside of what the mainstream media is saying, this is not just random ICE agents going out and just picking brown people up off the streets. These are targeted enforcements. They've done investigations in every single person they're going after. Now, if they go into a home and they find that there's other people in that home that are also illegal, they're picking them up as well. But it is very slow compared to what we saw coming in. The rate of removal is nowhere near the rate of entry. And one of the biggest problems is that you've got these activist judges, you've got these sanctuary communities that are aiding and abetting criminal activity. You're absolutely right. It's 100% unconstitutional. It should be challenged in court. It should be overturned. And before it's even challenged in court, they talk about this, but they just never seem to do it. They should defund all of these cities. Anyone that's getting federal funds who's obstructing the federal government, it goes right to the supremacy clause. The federal government, as a state or local municipality, you don't have the right to undo or to challenge federal laws. It's unconstitutional. So I agree 100%. But I think there's even more that they could do. They always talk about doing it. Unfortunately, I've never seen it actually done where they actually pull the funds from these communities and say, suck on that. But I think they need to do all of that.
There's a reason why they have this oath of office to uphold and defend the state and federal constitution. There's the problem. There is no penalty, basically, for
That's right.
any of these people when they step on the Constitution and do nothing about it. There's no penalty for them, and that's
That's
why
right.
they can get by with what they're doing. So
That's
now
right.
people got to step up and control our creation. We
That's right.
created government. We got to control it. So, Dave, I have to take off here.
No doubt, man. We'll talk soon. Ben, I want to thank you for tuning in. I know you got a lot of stuff going on. We spoke earlier, but yeah, you know, your last words for the American people, my friend.
Look, it's up to this generation. We're at the tipping point of losing this nation, and many places across the country are what I call post-constitutional, and cities like Chicago and states like Illinois or my former home state of California are living in post-constitutional America. And if we don't get this right, if we don't turn this around in the next couple years, I don't know if it can be. We're going to hit a tipping point. We're going to hit critical mass where it can't be undone. And you look at communist nations that have fallen. It's easy to turn communist. It's very hard to undo that. And typically, you know, you can vote yourself in. There's a famous saying: you can vote yourself into communism, but you have to shoot yourself out of it. And unfortunately, if we don't wake up to this very soon, we're going to be at that point.
God bless you, Ben. Thank you. And I'll see you in New York next week, my friend.
God bless you as well. Yep.
Right. So we got an exclusive. We got an exclusive with Ben Bergquam from Real America Voices. And what I'd like to highlight is that Ben is a professional. Ben goes into the field all the time. He went on the trails that the migrants take. He's gone to the border. He's gone to LA. He's gone to all these great places to give people on the ground facts about what's really happening. And he is such a professional. I really like it when I'm able to be on a shows with him, because he really is knowledgeable, has a lot of great information. So I wanted to share that whole segment with you guys because nobody else has seen that. This is an exclusive from the Let the Truth Be Told network, and we're the first ones to get it. So I'm excited that we got to share that. Let's move on because there's more enforcement happening. So with Ben being on the ground, he's been shadowing ICE all day today. And we took turns asking him questions about what he had seen. And he gave us a history and a background about what's happening. Mr. Binky, I don't know his real name, but he was able to give us a legal breakdown of what's happened and what should happen with the sanctuary city laws and the welcoming city ordinances. So we'll see if these words get to the president's desk, if he sees our show, or if Ben passes this message on. Hopefully he does. We're seeing more and more enforcement today. So we'll continue. So we started with a raid, a multi-agency raid. Now we saw the enforcement. Now we're seeing information about ICE raids that have started in Chicago. Now we're going to go to another type of enforcement. There's been a escalation from Maduro from Venezuela. So one of their planes flew really closely to our ships, and the Trump administration scrambled 10 jets. Let's look at the reporting.
Jets to Puerto Rico as part of President Trump's vow to crack down on drug cartels in the Caribbean. The deployment of the aircraft comes amid heightened tensions over Washington's buildup in the region, where the Pentagon said 2 Venezuelan military planes buzzed a U.S. ship. Earlier in a statement, the Pentagon cited what it called a provocative maneuver and said it was designed to interfere with the U.S. counter-narcotics operations, hitting out at President Maduro. The U.S. Department of Defense said the cartel running Venezuela is strongly advised not to interfere with any other operations by the United States. U.S. media reported that 2 Venezuelan F-16 fighter jets flew over the U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer in the Caribbean Sea. The U.S. official cited in the report said the U.S. warship did not engage. This comes days after the U.S. had struck a purported drug smuggling vessel in the Caribbean Sea. It said was headed from Venezuela, killing all 11 people on board in a strike that drew criticism at home and abroad over the apparent killing of civilians. In fact, the U.S. has sent several ships carrying some 4,000 sailors and Marines to the Caribbean in what officials have described as an effort to crack down on narco trafficking. The move prompted speculation that Trump, who has vowed not to involve the U.S. in more foreign entanglements, may be seeking to push Maduro from power. Earlier on Thursday, Maduro went on state TV and called on all military reservists and more than 10 million militia members to mobilize to their local communal offices. The flyby came the same day, by the way, that the U.S. Secretary of State visited Ecuador on a trip aimed at rallying support for the U.S. pressure campaign. Rubio has said America was prepared for more such strikes against Venezuela and signaled that the U.S. was willing to take even more aggressive action. The defense secretary, meanwhile, and Rubio have defended the U.S. strike and warned that more could follow, saying the U.S. government aimed to send out a message to drug traffickers.
To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WeOn app and subscribe to our YouTube.
Well, there has been an escalation indeed, and I think the message is being received. I just hope that there's no more escalation than this, because it's really not looking good. But we remember when former President Biden made Kamala Harris the border czar. And one of the things that she wanted to do was to deal with the root causes of what was causing people to migrate. Wouldn't call it mass immigration. She wouldn't call it a lot of different things, but she wanted to talk about what caused migration. So one of the things that she wanted to do was to go out, have conversations with different nations and find out the root causes. Well, President Trump is doing the opposite. He's looking for root causes as well, but he knows where the problem is. And he's cutting it off at the pass. So we've had our ships over near the shores of Venezuela, and we've been really patrolling this Caribbean region to prevent drugs from going from country to country. Because when these drugs and weapons go from Venezuela to these Caribbean countries and then to the United States, it destabilizes these countries. The countries then have people come to look for relief in America. So we're dealing with the root causes with force. And I commend the president for doing that, because we have to cut people off from coming to the United States. We cannot be a haven to the entire world. It's just not possible. We don't have enough resources for that. And we have to also do what's best for the American people and make sure that illegal guns, drugs are not harming our people, our economy, and our safety. So we're going to pivot, because
Dacara Thompson.
One of the things that we'll find when we're talking about immigration, we talk about policy. We talk about how open borders have consequences. We have elections that have consequences. We experienced 4 years of consequences from open border policies. Now we're strengthening our border. We're undoing everything that the previous administration did, and we're having to clean up from the consequences of their open border policies. But there has still been a marathon that we've been running to make these deportations. And even though the Trump administration has made a lot of progress, not everything has been undone, because these sanctuary cities, what they often do is they'll charge an illegal with a crime, but what they'll do is they'll release them the next day. And they repeatedly do a catch and release with these criminals, and eventually Americans get killed. In the video that we're about to watch, a woman lost her life because of an illegal immigrant killed her. And the police detained him for a DUI. But what did they do? Since Maryland is a sanctuary state, they decided that they were going to release him and not work with ICE to have him deported. And as a result, Dacara Thompson has lost her life. I want you guys to see this video, and I want you to really understand how these policies, they have consequences.
A woman with her whole life ahead of her was reported missing on August 23, 2025, after last being seen the day before in Lanham, Maryland. Her sudden disappearance alarmed her family, friends, and the local community. The uncertainty surrounding her whereabouts quickly escalated into a full-scale search involving local authorities and law enforcement agencies. The very next day, Dacara's vehicle was located in Hyattsville, Maryland. Inside, authorities found her personal belongings, but her phone was disabled, making communication impossible. This discovery heightened concerns and suggested that foul play could be involved. Surveillance footage later revealed a critical lead. Dacara had been seen entering a black SUV. This footage guided investigators to a residence in Bowie, Maryland. Authorities conducted a search and found evidence that suggested Dacara may have been harmed at this location. After days of anxious searching, her body was tragically discovered on August 31st in Anne Arundel County, Maryland. While the exact cause of death is still under investigation, officials expect it to be classified as a homicide. Attention quickly turned to Hugo Hernandez Mendez, a 35-year-old resident of Bowie, Maryland. Authorities arrested him in connection with Dacara's death and charged him with first and second-degree murder. Hernandez Mendez had reportedly been living in the United States without legal documentation. In April of this year, he was previously stopped by federal park police for a DUI-related incident, but was released pending trial. Prince George's County Executive Aisha Braveboy publicly criticized federal authorities for releasing him at that time. The arrest has brought a measure of relief to the community, but also raises questions about public safety and accountability. Hugo Hernandez Mendez now faces serious charges, and the legal process will determine the outcome of this case. Authorities are committed to ensuring justice for Dacara and her family. Dacara Thompson was a bright young woman, a graduate of St. Charles High School, and someone dedicated to her community. She was living with her father and working at a non-profit organization, helping others while building her future. Her family and the broader community are mourning this loss, expressing their sorrow and demanding accountability. Governor Wes Moore also issued a statement expressing grief over her untimely death. Cases like this highlight the importance of vigilance, the role of law enforcement in protecting communities, and the need for timely intervention. They also serve as a reminder of the fragility of life and the profound impact one tragedy can have on an entire community. As the investigation continues, authorities urge anyone with information to come forward. Community tips can play a crucial role in resolving such cases and bringing closure to families affected by tragedy.
Most of you don't know, since I live in Northern Virginia, this is right in my backyard. I know where Bowie, Maryland is. And that Maryland, Virginia, DC area, they're all really closely tied together. And for this to happen it's really devastating, because tragedies like this are very preventable in states that have the right policies. And, there are Americans that are murderers, but when you're consistently putting people back on the street because of their status, the status of their citizenship, it's putting people in danger. And if Maryland had have decided that they were going to turn this individual over to ICE after he committed the DUI, then Dacara might still be alive. And I know that the governor, Wes Moore, must be really torn up right now about what's happening. And I do think that his statement is genuine. But I'm kind of done with canned statements, and I want to show you guys my response to his statement. And I'm also going to read the statement. So I'm going to read his statement, and then I'll show you my response. Just give me 1 second. I'm just going to pull this all up. Okay. Our entire state mourns the horrible loss of Dacara Thompson, who was taken from us by an act of senseless violence. Don and I join all Marylanders in praying for Dacara and her family in the wake of this tragedy. We are grateful for the dedicated men and women of law enforcement, including Maryland State Police and the Prince George's County Police Department, who have collaborated closely throughout this investigation. I have been and will continue to be in constant contact with our public safety partners as they carry out their work to ensure that justice is served. Dacara raised her hand right out of high school to join our most recent cohort of Maryland Service Year Option members, patriotic Marylanders committed to public service. She yearned to be part of our mission to solve big problems with bold solutions through her passion for the arts. She was a bright light in our state. We will use every tool at our disposal to ensure those responsible for this crime are held accountable and honor Dakara's legacy of service through our unwavering commitment to the safety and well-being of all Marylanders. Now, I'll share my statement because I'm very upset. Because if the goal is to protect Marylanders, then why do they keep releasing illegal immigrants into the communities after they commit crimes? Because if it was Americans committing the same crimes, most likely they wouldn't be released so quickly. I'm also disappointed that he's saying that he wants to memorialize her memory and deal with the crime. But the crime is really a subset of a larger issue. The issue is the sanctuary city policies that put her in danger. And I'm gonna read my statement now, and we'll discuss it some more. Okay, so this one. So my response to his statement: why not say we got it wrong on our sanctuary state policies? We should have deported him when we busted him for a DUI. We are sorry, and we will rethink our policies. And this is my continued response. I am so angry about his canned statement. Fix the problem and prevent this from happening over and over. Very frustrated with what I'm seeing with Maryland, because how many Dacara Thompsons do we need to see before we start rethinking our policies around immigration? I am saddened that we're not dealing with these policies in a way that's constructive. I challenge people that are supporters of basically the catch and release policy for people that are criminals that don't have status in the United States or illegal aliens, to tell me a better solution to protect Americans. How are we going to offset the challenges that Americans are facing when we're opening up our country to the world? How are we going to put additional resources out there to protect Americans if you guys want to remain a sanctuary state? We've got to do better. We've got to hold illegal immigrants to the same standards as Americans if we're going to be fair about crimes. And if you are illegal, you should be deported, especially if you commit a crime. But if you're illegal and you commit a crime, you should definitely be deported. But that's not what's happening. And a lot of people on the left and Democrats and people that are Republicans and that are moderates, they will say, well, why are we deporting people that don't have a criminal history? Well, when these sanctuary states or sanctuary cities are not working with ICE to get rid of the criminals, they are going to, get whoever is available. And I think ICE has made their position clear that they are going to prioritize the worst of the worst. But if they round up someone that is undocumented or is an illegal alien, they're going to get them too. They're going to get them too. And it's not like these people that are here illegally and have been here for decades, that they're completely innocent. They've been getting American benefits. They have been benefiting off of just benefiting in general. So what I like to do is I like for people to start to think outside of the box about immigration, because we've seen tragedy after tragedy around violence from illegal immigrants. But it's not the illegal immigrants themselves, it is the policies that keep putting them back on the streets. We need to deal with those policies. We need to strengthen our border. We need long-term immigration legislation. And I'd really like to see people get on board with protecting Americans. As I said before, how many Dacara Thomases do we need before we start to really look at our policies? I'm Andre Barnes. This is Policy Barnes and Jackson, and I hope you've gotten something from this segment. Like and subscribe. We are on the Let the Truth Be Told network, so you can check us out on Apple. You can check us out on Roku. You can check us out on Android. You can check us out on Apple TV, Fire TV. And we want people to come to this media platform because we don't censor on our media platform. You don't have to worry about billionaire owners that decide that they're going to censor you. We are going to bring the truth with the facts and give people an opportunity to have access to information themselves. So check us out on Let the Truth Be Told network. And I'm Andre Barnes. This is Policy Barnes and Jackson. The policies matter. Educate yourself and make the world better with your vote, with your research, and let's lower immigration.